Happy Sunday, everybody. You're watching Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and coming up, we're getting to the latest buzz, all of the hottest rumors around Philadelphia as NBA free agency is just a couple of hours away on this Sunday, June 30th of 2024. And no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, we appreciate you for checking us out here on 76ers Now. Be sure to subscribe and join us, by the way. By the time that you're watching this video, we might already be live for our 76ers Now free agency special. We're going live at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, an hour before NBA free agency does begin. So hit that sub button, turn on those notifications. Therefore, when we push out a show, when we go live, you will be notified. Of course, the biggest story hovering around the Sixers right now is their pursuit of Paul George, them getting a meeting with Paul George, because Philadelphia is expected to have a chance to land PG-13. Adrian Wojnarowski with this tweet on Saturday, and we talked partially about this on Saturday's show. Thanks for watching that as well. That Clipper star Paul George declining that $48.7 million option. And because of that, he's entering free agency. He's planning to set meetings with cap space teams and the Clippers beginning on Sunday night. An opt-in trade scenario is now gone because he opted out of that contract. And then there's this from Woj as well, specifically mentioning Philadelphia as one of the teams that Paul George is going to meet with, in addition to his current team, the Clippers, and the Orlando Magic. Philadelphia, Orlando, some of the most cap space in the NBA. The Clippers, as of right now, not willing to meet the money and the years that Paul George is demanding, and that's why some people believe that he could sign with either the Sixers or the Magic. The Magic, a fun upstart team, no state income tax in Florida either, so that money could go a little bit of a longer way, but the better basketball situation is with Philadelphia. Nobody cares about the Orlando Magic. Come play in the city of brotherly love, historic organization, historic franchise, iconic logo, great fan base. You have Tyrese, Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Nick Nurse. PG, get it done. And I get that some people are lukewarm on this, but this is probably the best remaining option for the Sixers team. And we're also going to talk about Lauri Markkanen too coming up here in just a bit. Here's also what Woj said on the Paul George front. The Clippers have not moved off of their 3-year offer. That 4th year is important to him. That's going to be available to him in Orlando, and it's certainly available to him in Philadelphia. And the Clippers want to give him that Kawhi Leonard deal. They also don't want to go past that 3rd year. Steve Ballmer historically has spent money willingly on the Clippers, but they don't want to go into that second apron. For Philadelphia, they can pay Paul George and then round out the rest of their roster. There's also an expectation that PG could recruit some players to the Sixers if he does sign with Philadelphia. Here's what Keith Pompey said on the local front of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Sources believe Philly is the front runner to acquire Paul George. However, the Orlando Magic, another potential destination, cleared up available cap space to offer the max. George has long been the Sixers' targeted free agent acquisition to pair alongside All-Stars Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. So a fluid situation here, Chip. I'm ready to get hurt. I'm ready to get stunned. I'm ready for Paul George to sign with Philadelphia. And then we here on the show start to put together a bunch of different lineups and start to think about what that team could look like. But your thoughts on all of this? This is certainly heating up here, and we've talked about this for months about the possibility of PG signing with Philly.
Yeah, for months now here on the show. And it's getting to the point now where free agency starting today, the Sixers clearly the front runners, and I think they're going to get it done. Now, it won't get done today because he's going to take his time and meet with those 3 teams tonight and on Monday. But it really seems like Paul George is going to be a 76er. And so now, assuming that move gets done, you have Maxey, you have Paul George, you have Embiid. That is a very solid 3 to build around right there. And I've seen people in the comments over the last few days, as you know, we're getting closer and closer to this being a reality, saying, we don't want another Tobias. Paul George is not another Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris has never in his life played basketball to the level that Paul George can play basketball. And PG, yes, he's getting older and he's not the player he was with the Pacers or in his near MVP season with the Thunder, but he is miles ahead of whatever Tobias Harris has ever been, Sixers fans, I understand it's going to be a lot of money, over $50 million a year, and he's getting older. But give Paul George a chance to show what he can do on the court, because I promise you, when you see him play for this team and you see his fit next to Maxey and Embiid, you are going to love him, especially with what he can do, not just offensively, but defensively as well. So again, we'll see if this gets done. Orlando has a lot of money, an intriguing young team, and he could always go back to LA. But a lot of sources saying the Sixers are the front runners. Paul George seems like he's going to be a 76er, baby.
I said this on yesterday's show. You're replacing Tobias Harris with Paul George. If anybody thinks that that is a close comparison between these two players, my question, have you watched basketball? I mean, Paul George is so much better than Tobias Harris as far as fit, as far as offensive game, as far as defense. And imagine if Philadelphia can find a way to sign Paul George and also target Lauri Markkanen. So coming up next year on the show, there is some traction, there is some buzz about the Sixers trying to trade for him. And on the Twitter streets right now, some people are saying, wow, what I'm hearing, fans would be elated if this plan comes to fruition. Is that plan getting Paul George and Lauri Markkanen, the Sixers and Daryl Morey pull off those two moves? You'll be ecstatic. This will be the most hyped, the most pumped up that will be about a Sixers season in a long, long time. Here's what Kyle Neubeck said on the Markkanen front. I certainly think the Sixers have done and will continue to do their due diligence on Markkanen. I know they're admirers of him in the Sixers organization. The crux has been for a long time, while he's either just completely not gettable or he's not gettable at a reasonable price. So I think the Sixers certainly are in contact. Like Danny Ainge and Daryl Morey have had that relationship for quite a long time. So if something falls through on the Paul George front, I would bet you they will be invoked in conversations there as they are elsewhere. I wouldn't say it's the most likely option at this point. So Neubeck saying it's not the most likely option. He's also not approaching it as if the Sixers can get Markkanen and Paul George. That's more of producer Chip and I. That's our grand plan. You find a way to get Paul George and Lauri Markkanen, you're up there with the Boston Celtics. You're up there with the New York Knicks. I think you become a better team as compared to the Milwaukee Bucks. And if Markkanen's the backup plan to Paul George and you don't land PG, I think that's a pretty good move for Philadelphia as well. It makes you better, certainly, than what you are currently as of this recording. Now, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, the Jazz would like to keep Lauri Markkanen in a perfect world, but teams are preparing aggressive offers, and they are listening. I know that Danny Ainge and Daryl Morey have a relationship from previous years, but does Danny Ainge want to help out Philadelphia? How about a spin zone to that? If you think that the former Celtic great doesn't want to help out Philadelphia, what if he wants to help Philadelphia get a ring after Boston got a ring after they let Danny Ainge go? That's the spin zone right there. Markkanen, what do you think about him?
I mean, Markkanen is a tremendous player, will be a great fit on this team, but could you imagine getting both of them? It's tough, and it's definitely wishful thinking. It is financially possible, though, to sign Paul George to this max and then trade for Lauri Markkanen because he's not making too much money this year.
Yeah.
Now, you pretty much be right up against it this season if you sign Paul George and trade for Lauri. And trading for Lauri, you have to give up probably Paul Reed and rookie counsel, and then also have to execute a sign and trade or trade for another player to get the salaries to trade for Lauri. And then you have Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, Lauri Markkanen, Joel Embiid. You'd have a mid-level exception and then veteran minimums. That'd be your team.
Yeah, top heavy.
It's very top heavy, and moving forward, the Sixers would be in a very tough position financially after you have to pay Lauri Markkanen after this season. You'd probably commit a max, and all of a sudden you got 4 max players right up against the second apron. Is it really possible? It's possible. Is it likely? Would Daryl Morey want to do that? I don't know, but man, that would be a squad, no matter who you end up picking up with the rest of that rotation. So we'll see. I think it is more likely that he's a backup plan of sorts. If you don't get Paul George, kind of costs a lot. The fact that Jazz are listening to offers is pretty remarkable because they have been so unwilling to even think about it. They've been asking for, I mean, if Mikal Bridges got, technically 6 firsts, I imagine Lauri Markkanen, you're going to want 5 or 6 firsts at least as well. But again, he'd be a great fit. A big, can play the 3 a little bit, play the 4 next to Embiid. A great shooter, a great scorer. So keep an eye out if the Sixers don't land Paul George. Lauri Markkanen kind of seems like their secondary target right now. Of course, had to trade for him, couldn't just sign him outright, which I'm sure you'd rather sign a player outright. But Lauri Markkanen, man, could he be on the move? We'll see.
Couple more players to get to here, and we'll run through these names a little bit more quickly. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Brandon Ingram, Klay Thompson. Let's get to those players right now. As for KCP, 76ers still in on him. Declined that player option with the Denver Nuggets. I think there is a scenario in which the first what the F deal is when free agency starts, and if Paul George doesn't sign with the Orlando Magic, or the Magic get the indication that PG is going to sign with Philly or go back to the Clippers, that the Magic give KCP like $25 million per year. I could certainly see that happening as an overpay, but knowing that KCP could kind of help the current construction of that Magic roster. Mike Singer saying this, I've mentioned Indiana before as a team to watch for KCP. I heard it again yesterday. We'd keep an eye on the Pacers. Among the Sixers and Magic as teams that could lure him out of Denver, have heard, and it makes sense that he'd be looking for a longer deal at this point of his career. Here on Sunday afternoon, though, did this change things? Obi Toppin, 4 years, $60 to return to the Indiana Pacers. Does that take them out of the running for KCP? We'll see. Brandon Ingram, there's been some chatter about him maybe being a fallback plan for Philadelphia. I wouldn't hate that if that's like plan B, plan C, but is he not a top target? I don't think he ever should have been a top target. Here's what Jake Fischer had to say, and Fischer had a rough night during the NBA draft. Brandon Ingram has been listed among Philadelphia's targets this offseason, sources said, somewhere below George, although it's not exactly clear where Ingram ranks among the Sixers' proverbial group of wing targets to slot between Embiid and Maxey. In the event that George spurns Philadelphia, the Sixers could easily acquire Ingram into their $60+ million in cap space, but could Philly's 3 first-round picks prove enough for Ingram? Hold on. So the Pelicans don't want to pay Ingram, and now they're going to ask for 3 first-round picks. Get out of here. Come down from that price, and if the Sixers whiff on their first couple of options, then maybe you go the route of Brandon Ingram. Klay Thompson. He's not going to return to the Golden State Warriors, according to Shams Charania and Adrian Wojnarowski. Legendary 13-year run in which he was a 5-time All-Star from 2015 to 2019 and won 4 championships. He's expected to go elsewhere as those talks have not really gained any traction between him and the only organization that he's played for in Golden State. There are teams that are said to be interested in him, like the Dallas Mavericks. He might take a huge pay cut to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. You could throw the Sixers into that mix in addition to the Orlando Magic. Here's what Marc Stein said on the Klay front. Thompson is said to be seeking a 3-year deal at a minimum. Cap space teams, Philadelphia, Orlando, believed to prefer shorter contract structures than Thompson covets, but can offset that with higher dollar amounts than teams like the Nuggets and the Mavericks can muster. Very interesting that, yes, the Nuggets in the mix, too. That's one of the teams that I forgot to mention. So Nuggets, Mavs, Sixers, Magic, those are kind of the teams that are looked at as favorites for Klay Thompson as he leaves the Warriors. Also, some news here. 76ers did decline the qualifying offer for Terquavion Smith. Turk Smith, the rookie UDFA last year out of NC State, who had a great summer league and went back and forth between the Sixers roster and the Delaware Bluecoats. That does make him a free agent. I still think he's a young player with some upside who balled out in the summer league last year. And then I mentioned this quickly on the show yesterday that the Sixers declined the team option for Jeff Doughton. He will now be an unrestricted free agent. That opens up a roster spot for Philadelphia because he did occupy a roster spot prior to that move. Who will the Sixers sign in free agency? That is the big question, and we could have an answer to that question here in just a couple of hours. Make sure you subscribe. We will be live an hour before free agency begins, so we'll see you soon.